Okay, mate. Nice to see you.
Cheers, pal.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Just wondered what you've been up to this week. Tell us about this week. What's your week look like?
What have I been doing this week? Well, musically this week, I've been working on my album, which is coming out hopefully early next year. I've been getting some brass parts and putting some fat kick drums over them.
Over or under?
And I've been, to be honest with you, I've not been having as much music time in the last couple of weeks as I'd like, but I've been trying to set up these tracks and get some nice percussion, some nice drums. But it's sounding really, really good.
Right, good. I mean, for people who are oblivious to you and electro swing in general, can you give us a bit of background on electro swing? Because it's quite a niche genre, isn't it? But it's kind of around Europe.
Yeah, well, I was kind of writing like progressive house before I kind of found out about electro swing. So I was really kind of into electronic music. And my background before that was kind of guitar music. So I was always trying to like write dance music, but with that kind of influence of like a songwriter, kind of guitar player. And I remember a friend of mine at the time sending me a video saying, mate, you need to watch this video. It's just a guy dancing in a green room. It's amazing. So I remember watching it, and it was of course most people's first electro swing, like gateway song, Stellar's Cat Groove.
Wow, okay.
And the guy TSC Forsyth, his name is. He was dancing in this green room, and I remember listening to that song, and I've never had kind of an urge to be like, right, I need to write a song in this style. Like, this style of music is amazing. So I remember going to my computer, like I was like, right, Googling kind of like swing music. And I didn't really know, like I knew kind of like the big hitters of swing, but I didn't really know that much about. So I started listening to like...
Who are they like, I mean, for guys, who should they be looking into? Like Caravan Palace, things like that?
Yeah, well, I was kind of like Fletcher Henderson, kind of Ray Charles, all the Andrew Sisters, Boswell Sisters, all those kind of guys. But I started like kind of digging around for some like samples, and just ended up kind of uncovering a world of this new music that I'd never really kind of spent time listening to, and it was just amazing. And so yeah, like you said, like Caravan Palace, kind of them and Parel Stellar are just the two kind of protagonists in electro swing. They're like, they're the two guys that really got me into it. They're both like completely opposite ends, I think, of the style. But I can't even remember what the question was now.
just a bit of background for people who don't know much about the genre, really.
Yeah.
Because until we met in, what was it, 2013 maybe? Mm-hmm. Was it 2013, 2014, something like that?
2000, because I found a song that I did for you back in 2013.
Yeah,
it was. Yeah, it must have been like just...
yeah. So it was like back 5 years ago now, and I didn't know anything about electro swing. It was kind of like, we were just being geeks talking about different gear we've got, different monitors and all the technology side of things, and then kind of showed me what you've been working on, and yeah.
Well, I guess a lot of people, like the purists, will say it started, like, people argue all the time when it started. But I think it really started to become at the forefront in the last 5 or 6 years, a lot of it down to kind of the fact that it's being used a lot in commercial adverts and stuff. I think a lot of people I think love electro swing and has no idea what it is.
It's accessible, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's really accessible.
Yeah, and I think that's probably where a lot of people have probably heard of electro swing. I mean, everyone's heard "We No Speak Americano" by Yolanda Be Cool. That's, if anyone's seen the In-Betweeners movie, everyone comes away saying, "I love that song." But as a whole, it's still relatively a niche genre. I mean, but I've played...
Where it is a niche genre, but I mean, there is hot spots, isn't there, of where, I mean, I've been out to Berlin with you, and there's some really good nights going on there. Where are the hot spots for electro swing?
As in countries?
Countries, cities, nights, clubs.
I mean, the best electro swing nights I've ever played at have been, in terms of just the whole spectacle of a night, is Germany, Austria, France.
Yeah.
The night I played at in Berlin, and you and Johnny came.
Yeah.
It's in a warehouse in a kind of a dingy part of Berlin. You've got 1,200 people all coming dressed in kind of flappers gear. They're all, the guys are all like in suits and waistcoats and wearing flat caps, and
there's a real good energy there.
It's amazing, and they all come and they learn how to swing dance for the first hour, and then it starts off slowly, and for a genre that it's growing all the time, but it's amazing how many people like you can get into a club for a genre that's not as big as, say, like techno or deep house. It's still relatively small.
It's fun as well, isn't it? Know, like, I mean, my experience of it is there's very little. It's not very pretentious, or people are there for fun, and it's just a good night.
It can be a little bit cheesy, a bit corny, a bit like jazz hands. Yeah. And I know from experience of going to like electro swing nights.
Is that any worse than somebody wandering around in shades in a rock and roll scene, though?
It's not, but I think the thing is the first. You listen to you might have a club night for 8 hours of electro swing. After you've had about 4 hours of it, it's a bit like just eating sweets for dinner. Yeah. You kind of a bit like it does sometimes become a little bit much all in one go, because there's so many melodies and it's so it's really kind of sometimes sickly sweet. The music is the only way I can describe it.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
But because there are more and more people making it and more producers, it's amazing now. You go to these nights and you start off with a bit of swing hop. Yeah. And a bit of like swing glitch or whatever it's called, glitchy swing, and then it kind of moves on into like you have your kind of house swing and electro swing.
There's all these subgenres that are kind of developing. Yeah. And
my favourite way to end a night now is to end with like some drum and bass, like some swing and bass, and that it's the genre is kind of, I mean, Chris Tofu, who's like done loads and loads and loads of stuff, not just for electro swing, in music in general, but he talks about it being vintage remix now. It's electro swing is trying to pigeonhole it too much. The vintage remix is probably the better thing, because then you can
it's kind of umbrella
exactly, and you can start bringing in remix like reggae tracks and like anything that's kind of been re-sampled or remixed or rehashed.
Yeah, nice. I mean, I guess the track people potentially know you mostly for is the one with Octavia, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Delight.
Yeah.
So you've worked with Octavia. What was that? I know how much you respect her.
Yeah. Well, when I met Octavia, she was 16. I discovered her music on SoundCloud. Yeah. I just randomly kind of came across her, and the songs she had online were these little piano numbers that she'd done for her course, for a college course, I think. And I just remember thinking that she had this really beautiful voice. It was like really soft and delicate. But the other thing as well was that her melodies were so intriguing. And I think it was almost that it was the combination of both of those things that made me think there's something like really special about her. So we actually she ended up sending me the stems to one of the songs that I liked online, and I did like a Calvin Harris style like electro house remix of it. What was it called? I think it's called Breathe or something. I'll try and send you a copy. But then we had a kind of a bit of a gap, and then obviously the electro swing thing happened, and Delight was my first attempt at a fully original electro swing track, not using any samples or anything like that. So when I asked Octavia to come up and do it, she wrote the entire song on the train from London to Leeds. Like, she had no idea what she was doing before she came. I think she sent me like a rough melody like a few days before. She turned up. she came with a friend of hers because she was like so young. She
Yeah.
she didn't want to turn up and for me to be some kind of
Who's
horrible
this weird guy who's
murder
invited
guy.
me to his studio?
just waiting to put her in a body bag or
Yeah.
something.
So
But
she's got her head screwed on.
yeah, so she turned up. We recorded the song in like 3 or 4 hours, and then off she went back down to London, and then we didn't. The next time we met was probably about 2 or 3 years later, I think.
Yeah.
Between in that 2 or 3 years, things just kind of went a bit crazy, and it ended up being on adverts, and ended up selling really, really well.
Yeah.
For an independent
Yeah.
kind of artist who's not signed to a major, it was I think deemed a successful track, and
yeah.
that was the catalyst really for the start of my electro swing venture, I think.
Yeah. And I always remember the YouTube video with the guy dancing in the apartment.
Yeah.
And I played that to some of the kids and they love it. It's mesmerising, isn't it?
The most amazing thing about the video is that he recorded it on his phone. I remember there was a director from LA phoned me up, and it was just a crazy time. Like, just get a phone call from a guy from LA saying, "Hi, like I was a director for Happy Days. I'm doing an advert for this cosmetics company, and the guy, I listened to your music and I watched a video of the guy dancing in his apartment, the one in black and white, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
And what I want him to dance on the advert, but I also want to use your music. But I can't work out how he's got his legs to look like paper, because in the video,
it's
because of the
like
silhouette,
animation, isn't it?
yeah, like
With
his legs,
pants.
and he said, I've been, with all of my film directors, all of my cameramen, we've all been like studying the video. We can't work out how he's managed to get this effect of the paper dance. Like, it was almost like dancing like paper. Anyway, it transpires that all he'd done was got an iPhone, and then how you can kind of flip it so you can see yourself.
Yeah.
And of course, when you flip the camera, the resolution or the pixels is not as it diminishes. Yeah, exactly. And actually, it was he didn't do it on purpose. Of course, he did it on purpose. He literally just wanted to have it so he could see what was going on. A happy accident. And it's just amazing that these guys from LA, these amazing film producers and directors,
I'm mesmerised by something that
how on earth did he get that amazing effect? It's like, he's just used an iPhone 3 and flipped the camera because he wanted to see himself.
Yeah, that's definitely worth checking out if anybody who's listening wants to check out. It's a YouTube video for Delight, isn't it?
Yeah, I think if you type in Delight into YouTube, it's normally the second or third one that comes up.
Just a guy in a trilby in the suit.
I do know his name. Yeah. I think his name's Sven, actually.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, he's been on loads of adverts since that.
Yeah.
One for Decca Bank, but he's done not even just with my music, even with loads of other stuff. He's probably one of the most famous dancers in Germany now. He's he's done,
which is cool, isn't it? Like that.
Yeah.
Everybody's kind of elevating at the same time from the same project. Yeah, it's cool. So I guess that's enough on background, really. Talk about your process, kind of your production process or your writing process. What do you do?
For me,
does it work for you?
Yeah, I guess when I'm writing, it's either I'm going to use a sample and try and create a track out of something like that, or if I'm writing from, trying to write it like Delight and it's all from scratch, the process is normally pretty similar. I always like to have my drums finished, or I like to have them sounding really nice, like a really, really nice kick and then snare and hi-hat, and just getting that all sounding like it's working as a track, and then start adding things one at a time. I really can't stand kind of having a track that's full of unfinished things or things that aren't mixed. I don't like the idea of being like, I'll record everything and then I'll mix it.
Yeah.
I like to mix it, go along, even if that means that at the end I have to restart and do it again. I like to hear what the track is going to sound like. So I'll never kind of record everything in one go. It will always be one step at a time. So then maybe a bit of piano, then put the bass in, then get the vocals, and just all the time recording it and producing it so it sounds as best as it can at that stage.
Yeah.
So if anyone ever came to listen to any of the kind of, on my computer, everything's labeled like version 7.1, 8.3, 9.4, and it goes up. But every time you listen to it, it's always mixed.
Yeah.
It's never just like a load of random stuff.
Yeah.
I find it really difficult when people send me stuff and it's just,
Raw.
all raw, because it's so hard to just, get an idea of how it's meant to sound. At least if someone sends you a kick drum, a snare, a piano, and a bass line, and it's sounding good as it can be, at least it gives you an idea, and it's a bit of a motivator to finish the track as well.
Whereas I know guys who work the opposite way, and they'll just get down what they can because the picture's so clear that they know they can tweak that later, and they just need to get things down. So
exactly.
There is no right or wrong ways. It's just interesting to see how each person works, I guess.
No, there's definitely no right or wrong way to do it, and I've tried to do other ways to see if that's helped with creativity.
I was thinking earlier, it's quite funny when we used to talk about you've had some weird rituals in your early days of starting writing and mixing that you thought maybe, I've had them things as well, but where I seem to write better when I'm doing this, when I'm doing that, or as you've kind of the years have passed on, how do you look back at those things? Do you still use them, or
the rituals?
Yeah, just
I can't remember what did I used to say.
Just like you'd always have, I don't know, back when you smoked, you'd have a cigarette, and then you would go in the studio, then you would have you'd kind of have quite a setup and just to kind of keep you at your optimum, I guess. And that's, I've done things like that, but I know what I think now as I look back of whether that was actually effective or not. Like, it's just interesting to see if you still use them things, or you're just at that phase of where it's like, no, I can get home and I just straight in the studio and sit down and I just do it, and that comes that day like this. The next day it's completely different, or is it quite systematic?
I definitely work differently now than I used to, and I'd say that I'm probably 10 times more productive now. What I can achieve in an hour and a half is tenfold over what I used to do in like a week before. But that's mainly down to the fact that I kind of know what I want, and I think the most important thing to be productive is just to make sure, I guess, having a clear idea of what you want to do. If you're looking to sit down and just mess around with a few ideas, then of course that's great. But if you're trying to write an album of electro swing or house or indie rock or whatever, you need to have a clear kind of, you need to know what you want to do. And before, like the rituals, you're right, they were ridiculous. Back when I used to smoke, it's
unreal how many people have these things. Same as the footballers and guys and martial artists. They have these things that we kind of think that the preparation for, and that's fair enough. I kind of I'm not dismissing it, but I think it's just interesting how you can kind of move through them things, and when you look back, you kind of things change, don't they?
My favourite one was the one where I remember watching Rusko. He was like a dubstep producer, and he made this video, and he was like, yeah, man, what I do is I bung the girlfriend 20 quid. She goes get her nails done. That buys me 2 hours of beat making time. Get all my sugary snacks on the table. Like, sugar's really good for a sugar rush. Make sure you got some cigarettes. And I thought, what a great idea. Obviously, I wasn't like giving 20 quid for like, I didn't have 20 quid back then. And so I was like, okay, sugar rush. That's a good shout. Like, I want to feel excited when I'm doing it. And sometimes, if you just sat there. So I was like, right, okay, I'll buy like a 2 litre bottle of Coke. And I got into this thing of, I could only write good music if I had my 2 litre bottle of Coke. And of course, if you're on like a 4 or 5 hour session of writing music, you can drink 2 litres easily. But then I'd wake up the next day and be like, I wonder why I'm tired. I wonder why I haven't slept. I couldn't put my finger on it. Why am I not sleeping?
Yeah,
it's like
this is making me so productive, but I'm losing the next day because I feel,
But also as well, like the problem is once it is possible to spend 12 hours working on a track and it sound great, but what happens is sometimes your first hour can be the most productive, and then what you end up doing is, because you don't give yourself a break, you don't give your ears a rest, you end up basically undoing all of the good stuff you've done in the first hour, because you get bored of it and you want to change it, you want to make it sound exciting again. You might write a bass line, you go, oh, that bass line's amazing, you get a really good kind of feeling about it, but then that feeling goes and then you're chasing that good feeling again. It's quite addictive, and
you begin writing another track where you should, close the project and maybe, that's good enough for this one, move on, and then start writing a new song, because you can just keep writing a song over and over again, and it just remains as one project, and you could have maybe got four tracks out of that.
Exactly.
And that's just because you're not knowing when to leave it, I guess.
That's some advice. That's the first piece of advice of the day. Finish your tracks, kids.
Yeah, I definitely think we're not ones to give advice, but yeah, I know what you're saying. But yeah, we'll take that as number one. So the whole the perception of just stick a kick drum underneath it. How do you kind of feel about that? I mean, the process is a lot more than that, isn't it? Than taking a sample, sticking a kick drum underneath. I mean, take us through some of those techniques and things.
Yeah, well, I know you always like to mock me about. I think that was you're referencing the Paolo Nutini remix I did, because I literally took Paolo Nutini's song, sped it up, and put a kick drum underneath it, and you were like, "You've done nothing. Like, what have you actually done to this song?" And everyone's just like, "Oh,
you ruined one of my favourites."
Yeah, that
songs.
remix was so good. But that is the problem with electro swing, is just like any genre, you do kind of get a load of as well, and that comes with any genre, and you can hear the difference between someone just literally putting some awful sounding drums under a swing sample and then calling electro swing. As
long as they're having fun, it's okay, isn't it?
No, it's fine. No, it's not a dig at anyone about that. But I guess if you're talking about
that's part of the journey to taking it to the next level, I think, isn't it?
If you're talking about what's the difference between just, I guess, a lot of it, the problems that that happen when you use old samples is the first one is the fact that obviously a lot of them are recorded in like the early 30s, 40s. Yeah. And if you want to use those in dance production, remember that making a dance track is renowned for being like, everything's got to be very precise. It's all about, kick drum at 100 hertz and bass at what. So when you're taking a sample that's so unpredictable and trying to squeeze it into dance music, it's very easy for it to sound bad. So I guess the first skill in it is being able to find the sample and I guess be a bit scientific with it. Right, how much am I going to have to scoop out so that I can hear my kick drum and my bass drum and the bass line? Okay, there's a little bit of, the high end here in the vocal is like far too harsh for dance music. How am I going to make that sound softer and then also cutting it up so it's not just the whole song. Yeah. You kind of, how can I make a new song out of, or what was it? I can't remember the name of the song now. There was one song, I think it was, I can't remember the name of it now, but I used it on a song called Twitch, which was with Rosie Hart on the Grandiose EP. And it's just that the song was about 5 minutes long, and I remember listening to it on my headphones thinking, there's nothing in this I can sample. And out of nowhere, there was like this beautiful little piano bit, and it lasted about 6 seconds. Yeah. But that is the piano bit in Twitch. It's the most beautiful little piano riff, like a little ragtime style piano riff. Yeah. And like I heard it, I was like, yes, that's it. Cut it up, put it in. But that's it. Like it's a bit like being, an antique kind of like you're looking for those little pieces of gold. Yeah. That you can use, and
where it's going to
fit,
how
it's going to fit exactly.
The other, it's
that's
a jigsaw puzzle.
It is all about a jigsaw puzzle. And then the second thing, which is difficult, which it took me ages to realize, and I feel embarrassed that I didn't even notice before, was the fact that am I going to say this right? In America, the brass instruments are tuned, I think, at 444 hertz. I'm probably going to get some backlash about not saying this right. But in Europe, they're tuned at 440. Yeah. So whenever I was trying to write, if I was ever sampling like an American swing band or swing artist, I could never get the bass line to sit underneath, and I couldn't figure out why. obviously now it's a matter of just literally tuning it up by 4 hertz or tuning the sample down.
Yeah.
But what you find is when you write something like electro swing is you have to become better at producing.
Yeah.
You have to learn more about your craft, because there are so many little, it's like a little bit of a game really. Like, how am I going to make this track sit in a dance production? How am I going to make, but that's all part of the fun. It's like almost like a restoration project. It's like people that like kind of doing up houses and but being able to keep the feel. You can't just gut a house and stick a contemporary kitchen in it.
Yeah.
It's all about trying to maintain the character of the song, but with giving it that kind of modern edge. And that, I think that's very difficult. And I'm sure I've got loads of tracks which I've done in the past which have completely ruined lots of songs for some people. And I'm happy to admit that I could name a few myself on one hand. But there's also some tracks where I feel like that I've almost, like many other electro swing producers, you've given it like a new lease of life. And I think that's a beautiful thing, that you can take something that, that this generation might never have gone back and listened to unless you'd have done something different to it to make it, Sweet Rascal for it. Like, Fletcher Henderson is the most amazing, composer of swing music. I never really knew who he was when I was younger, and I wouldn't have listened to his music. But that's Sweet Rascal that's basically Fletcher Henderson's song. Just like you said, with a kick drum underneath it. And he, those melodies, people, when you watch in the club and you see 18-year-olds kind of like proper rave into it. It's that I think that's a great thing. Bringing it back.
Yeah, definitely. Talking, you studied in Leeds, didn't you?
Yeah.
You did your, what was it? Music
technology.
Honours?
Yeah. Bachelor of Science.
Oh, very good. So kind of based in Leeds now, and
Wakefield.
Well, Wakefield, yeah.
Shaky Wakey.
Yeah. But yeah, we've been talking a lot about electro swing, but obviously, I know you're quite creative. You've got a much broader scope than that, and how you've kind of managed that, because things have gone really well in electro swing, but that doesn't mean you can just eliminate all these other curiosities and influences that you want to explore yourself. And you're a big you love your guitars and things like that. What kind of bands, guitar bands, kind of would you say that have influenced you? And
where do I start? Well, my dad was like a massive AC/DC fan, so he had a Gibson Les Paul, which I used to always try and play on and like kind of play like heavy rock riffs. And then my friends at school kind of introduced me to like Red Hot Chili Peppers, and we got like massively into funk. And then I was in like several bands, and that indie era of like Arctic Monkeys, Milburn, Libertines, Arcade Fire, all of those bands. Just that was all I wanted to write was indie music. And again, I just love like the melodies of it and like the sounds and like how much energy it had. I definitely started getting into more of like the dancey side of indie music, I think, towards the back end, before I kind of transitioned into dance music. And I definitely preferred like the more dancey side of it. But yeah, all of that kind of stuff. And, absolutely love the Beatles, like the Beach Boys, all of those kind of things. And I think that's really important. I think you can hear sometimes in some people's productions, or when they write, when they've just listened to dance music their entire life and they've never really kind of broadened their horizons. And not saying that I'm some kind of master of listen to every type of music, but when you've come from a different background of music, the way you write is very different to how say like a jazz writer, or how so that's I think maybe possibly the fact that I found electro swing was a bit of fate, really, because electro swing is all about being able to play all those instruments, and it's an instrumental, it's a very clever style of music, especially if you're writing it from scratch.
Yeah.
I think that's given me definitely an upper hand coming from a musical background. I've been able to play the guitar, play the drums, play the piano. That's given me a leg up over those people who maybe just started out, writing dance music. And I think it's definitely important to have.
Yeah.
Have a broad horizon.
I mean, you can push a track on and get you can get the skeleton of a track down from start to finish.
Yeah.
Full instrumentation, and then if you want to call someone in and get someone in, you can. That's how you do it, isn't it? But you've got them capabilities, them skills to kind of get that skeleton down originally, which is massive.
Yeah.
What's kind of the difference in the process, do you think, from when you have done more, when you've recorded and produced more guitar orientated tracks, and I know you've worked with your brother on guitar tracks and things, do you approach it differently than you do well, I guess it's a completely different process, but
the song comes first then.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to write a song like that by just getting the drums up and working that way up. So other way round is you come up with the chord progression or the melody idea or a vocal hook, and then you record it differently. I think it's very difficult. I have tried writing it the way around, and you still get an interesting result, but when you're writing music like that, like indie music, rock music, it needs to be it's a song, isn't it? I think it's important that you have the fundamentals of the actual song before you produce it like you would. I think it's very, very different to producing dance music in that sense. Dance music, you can just start off and get some like percussive sounds and build it up that way, and it's much harder the way around, I think, with that kind of style of music.
I guess sometimes in an electronic song your focus is the kick, isn't it? I mean, some kicks can be so captivating that they are the center point of the song, never mind the melodies that are going on around.
Isn't it? It's the backbone.
But whereas I would say that when you're kind of going down the sort of, writing a track on a piano or an acoustic guitar, you are looking at the chord progression and the melody essentially, and you still get nice elements, but seems to be more polished, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And sits at the front, but So your last album, you did an album, it was about a year ago now, wasn't it?
Yeah, we released it at a very silly time in December, which actually turns out to be probably the worst time to release
an electro, upbeat, happy, summery.
Well, kind of an album that's probably more suited to summer festivals than a murky, wintry day
in Leeds.
But it's grim at North. Maybe that I just thought would try and cheer people up. But we released an album in December, which has gone.
Is that your first album?
First album, yeah. First kind of proper attempt at an album. I've always been like slightly dubious, and I still kind of, always think I really love like the idea of like a 5-track EP. I know that like some of my favorite producers, Coan Sound, who are two guys from Bristol, they always seem to like have this format of releasing like a 4 or a 5-track EP, and I remember thinking that's such a nice way. That I think that's almost enough for a person to get a feel of like what you're trying to bring and what you're trying to come across and the story behind it. With a 10-track album, I think it's, especially with electronic music, it can be quite difficult for it to sound kind of congruent and tell a story.
And as a collective piece.
A collective piece, yeah. I mean, if I'm being honest, I still listen back to Frenzy and the album and think that, some of the songs maybe doesn't quite flow the way I'd like it to. But that's all it's just a learning process, isn't it? And I guess it's about understanding what works and what doesn't work. And that's kind of been actually the main inspiration for my next album, which is going to be very, very different to Frenzy. It's full on electro swing album, like back to back. But I think
because let's just continue with Frenzy. You kind of diverted a little bit, didn't you? Not massively, but I think you allowed some of your other influences to come in a little bit, rather than just sticking to sort of, Delight's electro swing, isn't it? It's electro swing.
Yeah, I just going through that stage of every writer and producer that you want to try different things, and
Yeah,
I think I was like really captivated by pop music, and still am. I just find it. I think anyone who thinks that it's just music for stupid people who just don't want to go and find anything.
it gets a lot of stick, doesn't it?
Yeah, it honestly trying to write it is so difficult, and when you start listening to all those little production tweaks and things that are going on, you realize that I watched a video about Zed, who now is obviously he was a kind of house dance producer, and then now he's kind of this he's like one of the most wanted pop producers in the world.
Yeah.
And his song The Middle, I never realized that they tried like 15 singers before they found the final singer.
Yeah.
And the amount of people involved in that one song, although it's Zed feature, I can't remember the name of the lady who sang it now, but the amount of time and effort it took to make that one pop song is incredible. And that's what I mean. It's like the amount of effort that goes into it and the amount of people that are trying to. So I thought that that's kind of what I wanted to have a go at writing a pop track, and I still do. I'm still going to do it. I still want to try and find that balance, and even if it means it's like a kind of a swing inspired kind of pop track, I think it'll be really cool. But this next album is going to be. It's not really going to be focused on pop music. It's kind of going to be going back to kind of I mean. I can talk about the album now if you want, if that's if that's on the agenda. So it's going to be a 10-track album, working with a guy from Leeds and a couple of guys from London. Every single track is going to be original, full on, like brass sections, like piano, everything recorded in London and in Leeds. And it's also going to be featuring my very, very good friend Octavia Rose, who's going to be singing on. Hopefully he's going to be singing on the majority of the tracks, so it's going to be a Jamie Berry and Octavia Rose album, I think, more than anything. So that's really exciting. I'm kind of halfway through finishing that. We're going to record the vocals in about 3 weeks' time, and then with the view hopefully for it to be out in kind of January, February time, not in December this time. Not going to make that mistake again. So
because I guess you've got to get it out there at a time that it just gives it enough time to get out to people, and then when it gets to summer, kind of everybody's on it.
Everybody's raving. Yeah, that's it.
Right? Because if you put it out bang in the middle of the summer, it's kind of people haven't had time to live with it yet.
Spring seems to be the best time to release music, but it's also going to be. I can't really give too much away, but it's the way we're going to release it is going to be very different to how we've done it before, and it's actually incredibly exciting. It's going to be a huge project.
Yeah.
And if people liked Delight or like Lost in the Rhythm or Peeping Tom, the tracks that have probably been the most successful, then hopefully this album's gonna
tick that box.
Gonna tick that box because it's that sound but multiplied by 10.
Yeah. What are you envisaging are going to be the roadblocks for this project that you will have not experienced before, because it is a different process, isn't it? You got live recordings, London Leeds. What are the things that you're kind of foreseeing you're going to have to swerve and make work?
The main roadblocks have been, and again, it's I can't go into too much detail about why, but it's, I guess, trying to get it finished in time with a strict time schedule, which I've not really had before. So it's been, I've had to plan it meticulously, and even though I work as a teacher, you'd think I'd be organised, but as you know me very well. I'm like the most unorganised person ever. So I've actually got I've got a notes on my phone and I've got every single track 1 to 10, even though they're not all written yet.
Yeah. So you're a list person.
I've got a list, and then under each track I've got 5 bullet points, and it's like drums and brass mixed, vocals recorded, whole track structure, final mix down, and then master.
Yeah.
And I put like a little tick next to every one I've done, so visually I can see how close I am to getting it finished. And so far so good. And it's just about like, you know, I'll just go, right, tonight I'm gonna get the rough idea of this track done, and I spend an hour and a half, and I come away like, right, done that, tick it off. And some people might think that doesn't sound like much fun at all, but you have to be so strict with yourself, and
I think it's more fun that you kind of, if that's what you need to do to get something finished and then move on, then it might not sound like fun, but it's much more fun when you're finishing things.
It'll be worth it for the final outcome of the album. When the album's finished, and I'll be like, do you know what? And if it does work, I've never done it this way before. If it does work, then man, that's how I'm gonna do everything. I'm just gonna have like little gold stars and little green ticks for everything.
You're gonna get
Honestly,
a bottle of Coke back.
No, because the problem back then I was working as a care worker, so I had like shifts, so I could go to bed at 4 a.m, and then I wasn't on shift till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But now, you know, I can't go into work without any sleep, or I'll just have a torrid time.
Yeah, it moves us on to education really. Obviously, you teach music and music technology, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I had Johnny Dixon in last week talking about his contribution to drama education. Kind of, how do you approach that with the kids, and
how do I broach the subject of?
No, how do you approach it? Kind of
teaching it.
You know, because you're teaching teenagers, isn't it?
Well, so from 11 to 16-year-olds.
Yeah. So, kind of, what things are you covering music technology wise, and you know, where are kids at that age now? Because everybody's got a MacBook, or not everybody, but access to GarageBand at least is there to be creating at home from the off. And you've mentioned a few kids that you can't believe how far they are on. Yeah, already.
I guess from when I was at school, music has changed massively. Some things haven't changed at all, but the shift is in music technology, because that's where a lot of the jobs actually form. I mean, there's a misconception about music that you can't get a career out of music and you can't make any money, and there is a bit of truth in that, but the truth is actually that there is money to be made in music, and there are jobs out there. It's just you've got to be smart in which route you take, and you've got to be extremely the buzzword, just extremely resilient to be able to kind of keep up with that career path. And
because it moves so fast.
Because it moves so fast. But with the kids at school, I mean, we try and give them a nice balanced diet of music. It's not all music technology, but from the technology side of it, the kind of stuff we do. So with our year 9, who are now our like a GCSE BTEC group, because they're doing like a 3-year GCSE, they're doing grime music.
Right, okay.
So we're using this online software called, give it a little plug, Charanga VIP Studios, and it's a brilliant piece of kit. It's basically like any other DAW music software, but it's online. So the kids can
digital audio workstation.
Digital audio workstation for those people who don't like acronyms. And it's just great because it removes that boundary of, you need a MacBook to be able to do music. You need Logic or GarageBand, or these kids have this software now. It's completely free for them to use, and they can use it on any computer, on their phone. And I've been using it a lot, and some of the sounds on there, there's a synth on there called the Wub Machine, and it's so good. Like if you want some like really dirty like synths, it is honestly like it's so and the kids love it, because how many kids get to like write grime music at school? I mean, maybe loads of kids do, but I just think I would have loved that at school. And like I'm teaching them, how to get like a nice fat kick drum, of course, and then put the bass line on top, and then we're writing lyrics, and they're going to record them, and like one of the kids last year, he won like best grime track of the month. And it's just great. It gives them a little insight into another way into music, and how the most exciting thing about writing music on a computer is that you can do everything yourself at home. And if you want to write the entire song from scratch just with you, you can. And it's all, you feel quite empowered, I think, knowing that you don't need an expensive recording studio. You don't need, you know, a massive record label. You don't need all those things. You just need basically
the time,
some headphones, some software, a bit of time, work your craft, and then now with social media, you know, these kids can release these tracks on YouTube, SoundCloud, wherever they want to do it, and it's, I think it's great, and I try and motivate them, you know, obviously using my own experience, but also at the same time, you know, those guys are kind of living in a world that I'm 30 now, you know, some of the things these kids say to me, I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Feeling old, man. Feeling old. And but it is like I'm learning off them as much as, you know, they're saying to me, like, sir, you need to listen to this piece of music. It's, you know, this is what's in at the moment, and that's, they teach me as much as I, you know, try and teach them. It's a two-way thing.
And I mean, looking at it, you know, what are you seeing with the kids? Are they swaying more to the technology side of music, or the more traditional kind of, you know, picking up a guitar, piano, things like that? Or, you know, how's that panning out?
Kids still love guitar. The kids still love, like, we have a club after school called Rock Band, and the kids they want to play Green Day. Yeah. You know, they want to play Gorillaz.
Basket Case.
Oh, they all, and you know, this is like,
what it was called? Basket.
Yeah, Basket Case. Yeah. Well, I think we're doing like Warning, but it's amazing to think that, like, they love like the Arctic Monkeys and stuff like that. Yeah. This were like bands that I was listening to when I was their age, and that's amazing. But it's still, the balance is still there. You know, not all the kids want to do music technology. Like, a lot of them want to play guitar, and then you get your kids who really want to
I just
take
find
grades
it
in violin and piano and stuff.
Yeah, I find it interesting because, again, you know, it's dangerous. You can start generalizing, but there is a bit of stigma that kids are just into their phones and their iPads now, and that is all they do is stay glued to a screen. That's kind of becoming a popular conversation that everybody within education's having. But I see the music technology as a way to reduce consuming and you know, create with it. It's not necessarily a negative thing if it can be used and managed and self-regulated, knowing when to put it down, and to, you know, and as well, not all children are into it.
I mean, everyone knows that has done the tiniest bit of research into the links between well-being and playing a musical instrument will know that a lot of the answers to mental health can be through something as simple as going to the gym, going for a walk, eating well, but also doing something that stimulates the brain in a positive way, and that's playing and learning the musical instrument. And yes, music technology involves looking at a screen, which, you know, you don't always want your kids spending all day on the computer, but it is like, it's I think it's massively helpful to anyone who might be kind of, you know, struggling with that, because it really focuses the brain, and I don't want to go into it like any scientifically, because I can't, but
it
is.
You're not a neuroscientist.
No, exactly, but it is.
You're an electro swing DJ.
Yeah,
but
I'm not a neuroscientist. But it definitely has it's a positive thing. It's only a good thing to be spending that time doing something productive, and
I mean, that's the challenge of today, isn't it? We've all, you know, we've had television, and then, you know, there's a lot in the gaming world as well, a lot of negativity thrown that way for children and gaming. And yes, there is that line that can be crossed, but it's important that all these things can be used in a positive way, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, even when I was growing up, it's, you know, the Atari had come out, and then you were moving on to your Sega Master System, Mega Drive, SNES, and it was all going through. You got your Xboxes, and that is just unreal now, but it was still there. That you know, that product was there that children could overly attach to. There's always been something, hasn't there?
Yeah.
So it's not really the product that's the problem, and it is just educating and creating those behaviours that we can put them down and use them to different levels. But I mean, you'll have had your time, I guess, in the studio. I have, where you're doing too much and you can't put it down. What kind of things do you do when you know it's time to put it down now? Because you said that
put it down.
Yeah, close the laptop. You know, because it's just not productive, is it? It's not productive.
Well, that's what I talked about earlier about, you know, about how being more productive in an hour than I was at 10 hours when I was younger, because you try and give yourself little goals, little targets, or, you know, you can't be doing it for more than an hour and a half without taking a decent break, because your ears are just gonna suffer. You need a break from kind of leaning over a computer for all that time. I think sounds like a really kind of boring, like, you must take a break from writing, but if you want to get the best out of it and get the best, you know, make sure that you're giving yourself the best chance to kind of write good music and enjoy it, then I think that's really important. And that goes back to anything, doesn't it? It's just to
keeping that balance, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, you mentioned a few things there, kind of balance it out with exercise and you know, more physical activities, things like that. Just make sure that, you know, you're only spending 2 hours or something before breaks and all things like that. Right, we're just going to quickly finish on, you did a tour in Australia, didn't you?
Yeah.
And I came out to see you, which was quite eventful in the end. But
almost killed you.
But yeah, because we, for different reasons. But we've spoken about electro swing being massive in Europe, but how is it over there? Like, I mean, I missed most of the tour because I wasn't well.
You had malaria.
Well,
we thought you had malaria.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about the tour. I just want to talk about how you were hospitalised for 4 days.
Well, I don't.
Not from taking
that. Yeah.
Anything untoward.
Yeah, I'd rather forget that period, to be honest. It was the most expensive trip I've ever...
That you never enjoyed?
Ever done. And it just was a disaster, wasn't it? And then I
had a great time.
You had a brilliant time. I was constantly trying to catch up with you on the tour after getting out of hospital, and then we landed in, what was the valley called? In outside, 4 hours outside
Arley
Sydney.
Beach.
No, I thought where it was -3 in the bell tent.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the valley was now. I try and forget about it because it was such a...
Oh, it's a canyon. It was apparently the longest canyon in the world.
Sydney.
I think. No, in the world, I think. Some guy told me, but maybe he was lying. But yeah.
Maybe it was high.
But yeah, let's move off that. What was Sci-Fest?
Sci-Fari.
Sci-Fari, yeah. It was, And
Shout out to Steve.
Yeah. And we had to wait for our lift back into Sydney for like 6 hours. Just yeah. But looking back, it was all quite fun. And I got to see a few of your sets. And people were really into it.
They were loving it.
Yeah, the German MC guy who got up with you, and it was good. But just tell us a bit. It's not just Europe, is it? So tell us a little bit about Australia.
Australia.
A few more minutes.
My good friend Nick. He brought me out to Australia because he was running some kind of nights in Brisbane and kind of working on some festivals. I think Australia is kind of notoriously kind of slightly, I hope I don't offend anyone, but slightly behind in kind of music generally. But, you know, these guys were like pushing the boundaries in terms of like the nights they were running. And like, what I think they called it party jams.
Right.
Party jam. They loved like their party jams. And I remember playing that night in Brisbane. I was not in a good place at all. Like I'd just done like a 24-hour flight.
Yeah.
Stop off in Paris, stop off in Guangzhou. Hardly any sleep. Landed in Melbourne, played in Melbourne for the night. Got about 3 or 4 hours sleep. Then flight over to Brisbane, met up with Nick, and then literally like just straight off to the club.
Yeah.
And I was
deepest sympathies while I was in hospital. Almost
you
dying.
you went.
I just can't listen to this.
I know,
how horrible that must
really
have been.
Struggling, so tired, really tired. Yeah, I mean it's great. Like some of the festivals out in Australia, which to be fair, I've not been to the ones that like Rabbit Seat Lettuce and stuff like that.
That's
like
the guy who we drove out with, wasn't
he
it?
was the guy who drove us out in his multicoloured leggings.
Yeah, I drove us out in his car
and almost hit a kangaroo, or wallaby even. It's some of them look amazing. They look absolutely amazing, and like Safari was a glimpse into like, you know, what the festivals are like in Australia. It's absolutely nuts. It's just nothing like I've ever experienced before. But in terms of what it's like going out over to the places, it's amazing how well the music carries. You know, a lot of people say that my sound sounds very much like it's from the UK. Like you can tell that it's got that, especially the dirtier kind of tracks, like Out of My Mind, and the stuff that has that kind of like that dirty wobbly bass.
Yeah.
You know, it's very much a kind of a UK sound. So it's when you go to other places, like sometimes I've been to like France and played, and people have been like, what the hell is this? Like this I don't understand this kind of sound. And the purest kind of electro swing people don't like, you know, too much kind of wobbly bass stuff going on. It takes away from the swing stuff. But Australia, they're just they are the most mental party people I've ever met. They are absolutely crazy. Yeah. But in the best way possible. And I'd love to go out again. Yeah. It was the best, like the best 6-7 weeks I've ever had. It was absolutely brilliant. And Nick was a great host, and it was so nice not traveling around in hotels, because I think by staying with an Australian and meeting loads of people, like you got a true kind of understanding of what they were like.
Nice one. I mean, I think you'll be invited out there again. So we need to look out for your new album. You can check out your old album, Friends It.
Yep.
It's been good. Thanks for coming. And have you got any gigs to plug or anything just as we wrap it up? Where can people check you out? Nothing going on.
Blocked out the calendar just purely to focus on this album.
Right.
So,
all right. So check you out online, I guess.
There's going to be a load of festivals and gigs coming next year, hopefully. Yeah. So they will all be coming on my Facebook page.
Nice one. All right. So cheers, Jamie. That's Jamie Berrett.
Cheers, pal.
Electro Swing, and thanks for listening.
Peace.